got coffee, just finished dropping Remy off at school, and apparently I decided to shoot when the sun is bright as fuck! So I'm gonna talk to you guys about mixing. My nephew started producing music, asked me a few questions about mixing and mastering, so I told him I'm gonna make him a video. Here's that video. I'll see you when I get in the house. What's up? All right, so mixing and mastering is like a life journey, right? So like, you're not gonna jump into mixing and mastering and be like, oh, here's a button, here's a button, here's a button, and then you're fucking good. No. You're gonna start and you're gonna crash and you're gonna crash and you're gonna crash. Then you're gonna play your shit in some other stereo and you're gonna crash. Then you're gonna be like, oh, I got that shit. I finally got it. And then you're gonna play it in something else and you're like, fuck, it sounds terrible. And then you're gonna keep doing that for about 50 years and then you're gonna be the master of mixing and mastering. But there are some things that'll help a little bit. This is what I try to go by while I'm doing my mixing. I'll start off with that. We'll do mastering later. Okay, number one. First thing I do is start off with a limiter on the main output, right? So this is just to prevent your ears from fucking blowing out because you want to try out that new cool synth preset and it ends up being made by some crazy dude who thinks it's normal to blow people's fucking ears out. So do that. Put a limiter on. Make sure that it's set to like negative 0.01 so that it doesn't really do anything, doesn't affect anything. It just makes it so that nothing can go past that and it's not gonna blow your fucking ears out. 2, if something is too loud, turn it down. Okay? Turn the shit down. It's pretty basic, but you wouldn't believe how many people think like, oh, well, I need to hear that kick, and I need to hear that snare, and I need to hear that synth, and I need to hear that background ARP in the background that's not doing anything that no one can really hear, but yeah, whatever. If it's too loud, turn the shit down. I'd rather turn every track down fucking 3, 4, 10, 20 decibels, and then turn it all back up with the mastering process, or maybe just the turning the output of the main bus, turn that shit up at the end and have everything the correct volume. Too often people are trying to fight for 0, right? So like they put their kick and snares and drums at 0, they put their bass at 0, they put their synths at 0. No. If something's loud, turn it down, and then if everything needs to be turned down because everything's too loud, turn it down. 3, if something's too quiet, it's probably not, so leave it the fuck alone. Okay? It's probably not. Number 4, if it's not your drums, your bass, your lead synth, if it's anything in the background like, you know, background ARPs, pad synths that are like just little fillers in the chords, maybe you have pianos that are in the background, maybe you have things just filling things up, turn them down. Leave the shit that you want to be heard, leave that in the front. Leave your lead synth in the front. Turn everything else down. Leave your drums because you want that kick to hit. You want that snare to hit. Everything else turns down, right? And then you want that bass to come in. Now, bass is tricky because basses, when they're pushed too loud, they tend to just muffle everything. And everything just becomes fucking distorted because you might not be able to hear it. Maybe you don't have a good sub. Maybe you don't have a sub at all. And you're like, I need to hear that bass. And then you turn it up and then you're wondering why everything else feels like it's crunched, right? So bass is a little bit tricky, but for everything else, like your kicks, drums, leads, those things can be the things that you want people to hear, but everything else, turn it down. Number 5, going with the whole thing that I've been saying this whole time, if something's in the background, you don't need to hear it to feel it. So like if you have an ARP that's doing a really nice melody in the background that's just copying some of the things that the lead's doing, mixing with some of the chords, making sure that it's just, you know, pushing out notes just to give little feelers here and there, you don't need to hear that 100%, right? It's something that you'll just feel. You just feel that the chords are moving a certain way, especially with pianos and pads and things like that. You're gonna feel the chords moving. You don't need to hear every single sound. Now, starting with number 6 is EQs. So with your EQs, usually a good tip, not always, but a really good tip is if it's not a bass or a kick drum, you want to cut the EQ at like 250K, right? 200, 250K, something like that. Maybe a little bit more if it's, you know, something like a lead synth. But pianos, all that stuff, they all are pretty flat. When you cut the bottom EQ, that leaves so much more room for the bass, the kick drum, and things that you want that need that space. So remember, like the bottom end of, my battery died. Anyways, the bottom end of the EQ spectrum, it has less room than the top end. So you want to make sure that whatever you can do to make more room for the things that need to be down there, you got to do that, right? So about 200, 250K, cut most things. A lot of things can be cut a lot more. Number 7, make room for the kick specifically. So what that means is that when you're in the club and you want that shit, you want that shit, you know what I'm saying? So that means, again, everything else needs to be turned down, blah, 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 blah. What you can do so you're not turning everything down to make room for the kick, you can start side chaining. Now, I made a tutorial about side chaining, just something quick to go along with this. You can see that in the description below. So you need to start using side chaining to make sure your kick has all the room, right? All the fucking room. The Chainsmokers are a great example of people who use side chaining to make room for their kicks, but they also use it in weird spots just as an effect, something cool. There's plugins like Volume Shaper or LFO Tool, which I use, that make this really easy. What side chaining is anytime your kick comes in, everything else gets pushed down and then comes back up as your kick goes out. Whatever. Look up that tutorial. Maybe it'll help you. Maybe you already know how to do it. Great. So number 8 is your lead sounds, your vocals, and anything that you want to have more of a presence in your mix. You want to turn those EQs up around 4K or so, right? So you want to make sure that things like lead synths have that airiness, vocals have that airiness, but be careful because this is where you can start to make your track sound tinny and annoying and start to be really harsh in your ears, especially with S's. So if you're pushing your vocals EQs up, I recommend putting on a de-esser. That'll, you know, stop the sibilance of the S from being too crazy. And for your leads and stuff, you can even put a de-esser on those as well, just to make those sibilances on leads kind of be tamed and calmed down. So yeah, anything that you want to stick out, just add some high EQs to that, and it makes it so it sticks out in the mix. Number 9, I DS almost everything. I use the FabFilter DS and it has insane algorithm. I even put it at the end of my mix to any of the hi-hats or anything that after mastering the whole thing, I put the DS very slightly at the bottom of the chain so that after everything's said and done, anything that's gonna be that harsh, annoying sound is gonna be tamed and just stop that harshness from going on in your ears, especially if you wanna bump up those high frequencies and your leads and your vocals and things like that. And finally is number 10. This is the most important thing throughout all of this, all of mixing, is you're trying to turn things down to make things mesh together. You're not trying to get your music as loud as someone else's. You're not trying to push it so it's club volume. You're trying to get, for mixing, you're trying to get everything down, everything meshing together so it sounds cohesive, so that you got a nice feeling. You got the side chaining coming in so that kick is powerful. You got everything, all the volumes are matching. You got the EQs right. That's what you're trying to achieve with mixing. Now, because of that, what happens is you tend to have a really low volume output in the end, right? So that's where mastering comes in, and we're gonna go through mastering on another little whatever this is. I'll go through that as well, but that's where you wanna turn it back up. That's where you wanna add the volume, and you wanna just add a little bit of sauce on top, but you don't wanna get lost in the sauce, you know what I'm saying? Anyhow, yeah, so listen to other people's stuff. Listen to the music that you think you would like to make, and then try to match it, right? That's everything I can say about mixing. I don't know, talking to a camera is freaking weird. Good luck, and thanks for watching this tutorial. Remember, mixing is a journey. It's about trial and error and coming up with a sound that you like. If you like this, thumbs up. If you didn't like it, thumbs down. That way I know not to make this stupid type of shit ever again. I know people in the comments are gonna tell me how I suck and how math and how blah blah blah. Fuck off. Love you guys. Ugh.